When Emma and I planned our camping trip to Black Pine Forest, we were both eager for a weekend away from the grind of city life. Just 2 days of fresh air, no phones, no deadlines, just the sound of the wind rustling through the trees, the crackle of a campfire and the occasional hoot of an owl. It was perfect, or so we thought. We arrived in the early afternoon, the sun filtering through the towering pines, casting long shadows that gave the forest a mysterious yet peaceful vibe. Emma loved the quiet, the stillness of it all. I did too, in a way, but there was something about this place, even in daylight, that felt heavy, as if the trees were watching us. We set up camp by a small clearing near a creek. The sound of water flowing over the rocks was calming, and the isolation was exactly what we were after. After a while, Emma started the fire while I went to gather more wood before it got dark. As I wandered deeper into the woods, I noticed how quickly the light was fading. There was something odd about the way the shadows stretched, like they were moving in ways they shouldn't. By the time I got back, the fire was going strong and the sun had dipped below the horizon. The temperature dropped fast, and the warmth of the fire became a welcome comfort. We cooked dinner, shared a bottle of wine, and talked about everything and nothing. It was the kind of night we needed, until it wasn't. It started with the sounds. At first they were faint, almost too distant to notice. A snapping twig here, a rustle of leaves there. Emma heard it too. She shot me a look, her smile fading. "Did you hear that?" she asked, her voice low. "Probably just a deer or something," I replied, trying to sound casual. But there was a tension in the air that made me doubt my own words. I tried to shake it off, thinking it was just the forest playing tricks on us. But the sounds didn't stop. They grew louder, closer. Footsteps slow and deliberate, like something or someone was circling us. Emma stood up, staring into the darkness beyond the fire's glow. "Do you think it's another camper?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "There shouldn't be anyone else out here," I said, feeling the unease creeping into my chest. We had deliberately picked a remote spot. No one should have been anywhere near us. Suddenly there was a low growl, not the kind you'd expect from a wolf or a bear. This was different, inhuman, guttural. Emma grabbed my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "What the hell was that?" she asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I said, trying to keep calm, but my heart was pounding. I grabbed the flashlight and shone it into the trees, scanning the forest for any sign of movement. But all I could see were the long shadows cast by the trees. Nothing moved, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. The growl came again, louder this time, closer. I turned to Emma, whispering, "We need to get to the car. Now!" She nodded, her face pale in the firelight. We quickly doused the fire, trying to move quietly, but it was impossible not to make noise. The footsteps followed us, heavy and deliberate. Whatever was out there was getting closer. We didn't run, not yet. But we walked faster, sticking close together. I could feel Emma trembling, and I was doing my best to keep it together, but I was terrified too. I'd heard stories about these woods, old legends about creatures that lived in the deep forests, but I never believed any of it. Not until that night. As we neared the edge of the clearing, something moved in the trees. I caught a glimpse of it in the moonlight, a tall, emaciated figure, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. It stood on 2 legs, its body twisted and unnaturally long. And the smell. God, the smell. Like something that had been rotting for weeks. It let out a screech, high-pitched and piercing, a sound that made every hair on my body stand on end. Emma screamed, and we bolted. I grabbed her hand, pulling her as fast as I could toward the trail that would lead us back to the car. The footsteps behind us quickened, and I could hear the thing crashing through the underbrush, closing in. We ran through the woods, the branches scratching at our skin, the undergrowth trying to trip us. My lungs burned, but I didn't stop. Emma was barely keeping up, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I could hear the creature behind us, its wheezing breaths and the sickening sound of its claws scraping against the trees. It was toying with us, letting us think we had a chance before it would finally make its move. Just as we broke through the tree line, I saw headlights, dim and distant, but enough to make me shout for help. A figure stepped into the beam of light, a forest ranger. He waved, shouting something I couldn't make out over the pounding in my ears. We sprinted toward him, and as we reached the road, I dared a glance behind us. The creature had stopped at the edge of the trees, its glowing eyes locked on us. It let out one last growl before disappearing into the darkness, as if the presence of another person had driven it away. The ranger hurried over, his face a mix of confusion and concern. "You two okay?" he asked, looking us over. There was something," I stammered, struggling to catch my breath. "In the woods. It was chasing us." The ranger's face grew serious. "Get in the truck," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Now." We didn't argue. Once we were in the truck, he drove us to the nearest ranger station. We didn't say much on the ride there. Emma was shaking, her hands gripping mine so tightly that her knuckles were white. I was still trying to process what had happened. When we reached the station, the ranger asked us to describe what we saw. I told him everything, the sounds, the growl, the creature. He listened carefully, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "You're not the first ones to see something out there," he said, his voice low. "And you probably won't be the last." I stared at him, disbelief and fear mixing in my gut. "What was it?" He hesitated for a moment before answering. "There are stories about these woods, about creatures that shouldn't exist. Some people call them Wendigos. Most folks don't believe in that sort of thing. But after what you've been through, I'd say it's best if you don't come back here again." We didn't need to be told twice. That night changed everything. Emma and I never spoke about it again, not really. We left Black Pine Forest behind, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear that growl in my dreams. And when I do, I wake up in a cold sweat, knowing that Wendigos are real, and they're still out there.